When Tolkien died in 1973, when I was working for his publisher George Allen and Unwin, his death had a considerable impact, obviously, on the company. Not in terms of sales, or because obviously it was selling extremely well, or the whole range of Tolkien's output was bestsellers all the way across the range of books. But he had been a presence for such a long time, and all of a sudden he wasn't there. And time rolled on, of course, and somewhere in the background people were aware of another volume which is yet unpublished, the nature of which was never really defined. Whether the commissioning editors knew about it in more detail, I really don't know, but it was there. Also, in the book trade in general, where the information had come from, I'm not quite sure, but there was an undercurrent that people were aware that there was another book, the nature of which they had no idea. Perhaps something along the lines of Lord of the Rings, or a carry-on, all guesswork. And then 1976. It became apparent that there was going to be a new book, and great excitement in the book trade in general, because obviously it was going to be a bestseller. There's absolutely no doubt whatsoever. So ultimately the book was published in September in 1977. The interesting thing from my perspective was that it was, though in fact the book trade in general were looking forward to it with much anticipation, overall their enthusiasm, though it produced orders, it was apparent to me that the demand was going to be far in excess of what they really were buying stock in for. You can't really blame them, particularly independent booksellers who have a limited budget, and they always err on the side of caution. But even in the case of W.H. Smith, for instance, which is a major organisation at that time, when the book was eventually published, they actually ran out of books within 3 days. I was responsible for the library suppliers. Library suppliers were a major customer of most publishers. Their function really was to actually get books and put the jackets on, and the pockets where the lender's card was put, some cases putting specific numbering systems. Basically they serviced the book and made it ready for lending in libraries. One of the major library suppliers, just to give you an idea of the extent of their influence on the publishing industry, their initial order was 60,000 sheets. Some of them, in fact, bought in sheets rather than actual completed books, and then did the binding themselves. It was interesting, really, because I actually rolled up to their doorstep expecting a great welcome, and in fact was greeted with the observation that yes, but we haven't actually had the sheets yet, and it had been published. I immediately got into the car and drove down to Birmingham, where the printer was, and arranged for them, actually found a local transport company who actually immediately shipped overnight the 60,000 sets of sheets, which really added some brownie points to the way they regarded me at this particular company. People were rather bewildered by the nature of the book. It wasn't quite what they're expecting. But in terms of the numbers of copies ordered by bookshops, they all woefully under-ordered. I mean, most of them had no stock within 2 or 3 days. And I can't remember exactly how long it took to produce a reprint, but it was a few weeks certainly. But it was an absolute publishing phenomena. Of course, it had been actually produced by Tolkien's son, Christopher. So it was a major event. Just how many people, other than the real Tolkien enthusiasts, actually read through it, I'm not sure, because I'm sure quite a few people would imagine that the book was going to be similar to The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, a kind of page-turning narrative. That'd be interesting, really, to look at the statistics in terms of did you read all the way through the Silmarillion. But certainly in my career, Alan and Unwin, it was a very major event. And of course, it goes on. There was a feeling, of course, there was nothing else to come. But looking at, I left Alan and Unwin actually after 12 years in 1980. But looking at the international book scene, which I do from time to time, and on various websites, publishing websites too, it's apparent that there's a good deal of recycling going on, which is perfect. It's totally inevitable. I mean, if you have something which sells, you want it to go on and on, so you just produce it in different guises. So the Tolkien phenomena and its huge fan base continues to thrive nationally, internationally. I don't know how many languages have been translated into. I have no idea, but I assume that in fact it's many. So it was the book itself, of course, was really an ongoing project through Tolkien's life. I mean, I recently looked, and it was like a 60-year gestation period, and it was obvious it was never going to be published within his lifetime. So we're fortunately for the reading public and the Tolkien oeuvre that it was actually published not too long after his demise.
If you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more, please subscribe.
And the listener.